Um, and some seasonings, like it'll have a little cumin, things like that in it, and the mint leaves. Yeah. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh, the mangas is something that I just came across when I was looking at Indian desserts. I wasn't sure what I wanted to make, so I just dug through a bunch of different types of Indian desserts. And I came across it. It sounded interesting. I I've definitely never had it. It's a type of Indian, they call it like an Indian fudge. Um, but what it is it's ghee cooked with chickpea flour and semolina. And then you'll add powdered sugar, cardamom, a touch of salt, and top it with chopped almonds. I hope it's good. I don't know if it'll be good. The Indian desserts that I have tried in the past are very different from ours. And sometimes they work out, and sometimes they do not. And that may not have anything to do. They don't have a lot to do. I've only made them myself. I haven't had them made by someone from India. So it could just be that my skill is not that great when it doesn't turn out well. I can't necessarily blame the food. I don't know what I'm trying to achieve. Um, and when you don't know what you're trying to achieve, you don't know if you actually did. So you don't know if it's normally good or not. This is why I need to travel the world to go on a food tour so that I can find out what's going on out there in all these foods that I want to eat because I do not have the personal skill to necessarily do it correctly. Oh, okay, thank you. It does not need to be refrigerated, but I should take it off the stove. I did at least move it away from the heat source, but I am very, very grateful that the friends that I have are willing to experiment with me on foods because I do enjoy the experimentation. I like trying things that are outside of my experience. And I don't always like what I do, but I like having tried it, you know? I do need to like get on to some of them about being more willing to to be critical of the dishes, though. All of my friends are too nice, and they point out the things about the food that they like, but they don't necessarily point out the things that they don't. Um, and I am always wanting to improve. So, like when I made the stir fry, and it was obvious that the rice had not dried out enough before I made it. Nobody said anything until I did. And then once I said it was not okay, then Skip was like, yeah, I wasn't going to mention that. And I was like, God damn it. But I do really prefer to have honest feedback. Yeah. That'll do. All right. Me? I'm Misty. I I appreciate that you care. That is one of the most interesting cultural norms. I do. I do enjoy being called a bitch. I do. But only when I deserve it. Let me earn it. Um, One of the most fascinating cultural norms of Twitch. Um, it is. It is. I do. I get very excited. Uh, Hold on. Mute me. Mute me. All right. This has been going for about 11 and a half minutes. Um, so a lot of streamers want people to remind them to do those things, drinking water, stretching, those things, and they do need that, and it is appreciated. But I do find it to be one of the most fascinating things because never would I walk up to someone IRL and be like, drink more water, go have a drink. Um, like that is one of the most bizarre concepts in my mind. So I have never adjusted well. Um, to be fair, I'm also somewhat obstinate and defiant by nature. I try really hard to control it. I don't do a great job all the time. Um, mm-hmm. Is it? Right, right, right. Mm-hmm. Um, I just personality wise, right? I may be open to suggestion, especially if there's reasons behind it. If you notice something specific and I have the reasons why somebody says something, I I am more or less just telling you I'm not very likely to listen. It's more of what it is. Uh, I tend to I promise you that I will drink if I need to. Um and I will be moving around enough in here that stretching won't necessarily come up. And if I'm being 100% honest, there is never going to be a day that I'm going to do stretches while on stream. I know. And that's why I said I know that it's a caring thing to do. I really do. And I appreciate the caring. Um It's just also that I'm in my 40s, and if I don't know that I need a drink, uh, that's a problem. Okay, Google, stop. Like I said, I have a defiant nature. It's not you, it's me. And it is the cultural norm here. Um, that is what people do, and that is a way that they show affection. A little bit. A little bit. Oh, no, 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 I'm sorry. I got it wrong. I told Debbie. It's strong-willed. Strong-willed. Got something interesting going on. That's a bag. I would like whatever's in it, please. Yeah. Well, and that's where mutual respect comes in, right? The ability to understand that people have different opinions and that that is okay. That we do not need to always agree, and that it doesn't make another person a bad person because they think something differently than we do, which I think people seem to forget sometimes. Yeah, it's true. Well, my sister and I were actually talking about that particular topic. Um, right, right, right. um, right. Um, my sister and I were having a conversation about this particular topic, and it is a complicated one, right? Especially when what we believe. Okay, how do I consolidate this topic? Um, Obviously, we hold our beliefs because we think they're right, right? We wouldn't believe it if we didn't think it was right. We think we're right, that's why we think that way. Um, but here's the thing. As a blind person, I live my life with partial information all the time. I do the best that I can, but I know that I do not have all of the information that I need and that I will make mistakes based off of the limited information that I have. It is a daily occurrence for me. Um, I believe very strongly that our little bitty brains, as humans, as a species, are trying to do their best to take the amount of information they have and can perceive and make sense of it and help us to understand the world so that we can survive in it. However, I believe that no, all human beings are incapable of perceiving reality as a larger whole, right? We are not capable. We do not have the senses for it. We can extrapolate, we can we can build evidence towards, but we cannot perceive everything. Um, and so, as a species, we are all blind in a fashion to what is real and what exists. Um, I'm just more aware of mine. And since everyone shares that particular blindness, they don't know they're blind unless they stop to think about it. So that's my thought on that topic in a very, very, very consolidated form. All right, I think. Okay, have fun. I'm done anyways. I'm done for now. Possibly. unless somebody says something I need to argue with. Hey! uh, ooh, okay. 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 I will argue with that. While I believe that it is better, it is ideal, it is a respectable thing to be open minded and accepting and all of those values. We need to, on a cultural level, consider that realistically. All right? Now, again, we're going to come back to the brain. We're going to come back to us as animals. We're going to come back to us as a species and how we have learned to survive. Right? Oh my God, this is a big topic, guys. This is a big one. Um, I am not. I am not excusing holding isms. I am not excusing hatred, but we should understand it. Once we understand it, then we can have power over it. Okay? When we deny it, when we pretend that it's a choice that we have no control or that we don't, when we don't recognize what causes the thing in the first place, we have no power over it. Okay? Now, in order to simplify this, I'm going to go with discrimination towards the blind, right? Because that's a topic I've got something on. I can talk about that a bit more freely than a lot of the other topics. Now, when I was in college, I had a sociology professor. Hold on. Oh, it expired. Okay. I had a sociology professor that was from a different country. And she was talking about when she first came to the United States. When she did, she was at a bus stop and she sat down at on the bench at the bus stop, and it was, you know, a larger one, so you can fit at minimum 3 people on one of those benches. Everyone who came up after her stood near, but not too near, that bench, and no one else sat on it. Where she was from, that was not normal, right? The proximity levels that were normal in her culture were much, much closer. And so she internalized it a great deal. She wondered if she stank. She thought people were being racist. She had a very difficult time and internalized their behavior to have something to do with her. In actuality, Americans have a different cultural proximity norm, right? So, how far away we stand from one another in as strangers, as friends, and as intimate relationships differs from other countries. If you watch 2 different cultures trying to interact that are unaware of this difference, you'll notice this really fascinating little dance that neither of them knows they're doing. Okay? So one will step towards the other to try to close that proximity gap that is normal for their culture. The other one will step back. The other one will step forward. The other one will step back. And this will go. And most of the time, the people are not even conscious that they're doing it. But it does cause an underlying subconscious discomfort with that other individual. Yeah. Now, because this is a foundational thing for the concept that I'm about to talk about. So I do talk about it fairly often. Um, Now, blind people, this is exactly the conversation we had, isn't it? I think we did. So blind people never learn the norms of body language, especially when they're born blind. They do not have that exposure, and no one teaches them. All right? So they make a lot of mistakes. They do a lot of things that make other people uncomfortable. Um, it is not actually a discrimination against the disability or the person with the disability. It is a discomfort with the fact that the cultural rule keeps being broken and they don't understand what's happening and why they're uncomfortable. I have met blind people. It's one of the creepiest things. I absolutely hate it, right? I cannot stand being around this particular type of blind people. They are trying to look friendly, but they don't know the appropriate facial expression. And so they will smile the whole time when it's not appropriate, right? Just this dead, constant smile. And it is one of the most uncomfortable fucking things on the planet. All right? Um, they don't know that they're actually causing discomfort by trying to cause comfort. Nobody tells them. Now, the only way that we can get past the isms that we have built in our mind is to acknowledge where they come from. Where is the core of the issue? Where is the discomfort? It doesn't excuse it. But if we find ourselves disliking another person, especially on a racial or group level, then we need to stop and ask ourselves, what is the thing that is actually upsetting? What is the reason why we are uncomfortable, that we don't want to be around them? And then we face it, right? Without exposure, without actually putting the effort forward to understand, we cannot change it. We can fake it, we can pretend, we can lie, but it's not true, right? It's not real. Um, so it is a much, much more complicated topic, as well as actually understanding why. Are when you are talking to someone who has a viewpoint that is offensive to you, do you stop to ask them why? Or do you just immediately go to, this is a bigot? This is a bad person. This is, I try to find where I can understand what they're thinking, where they're coming from. And then from there, we can engage in a mutually respectful conversation that hopefully will lead to a mutual understanding and acceptance. Um, so it's, I was an anthropology major, and culture, why we believe what we believe, why we think what is right, all of that. That's where my psychology and anthropology were my two topics. So when it comes to the brain, behavior, people, and why, those are hello to Canada. Um, so yeah, I'll go on and on if you let me. I really will. It gets really bad. A diatribe. A diatribe like nobody's business. It's not good. But asking each other, what do you mean? What makes you believe that? What experiences have you had? Who has influenced you? And then understanding how that shapes their reality. All right? I have met people who believe in ghosts, in spirits. They they believe it absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll talk about my favorite culture here in a second. Um, they believe it absolutely. It is based on the experiences that they have, right? And to them, the experiences that they have are absolute proof. They're not going to convince me because I've not had those experiences. I all of the experiences I've had in my life, I can I can make sense of on a different level, in a different way. And therefore, based on my experience and my knowledge and my understanding up to this point, I don't. However, I will not tell somebody who has had experiences, who is a thinking, intelligent human, that their experience is invalid. I could tell them how I might try to explain that circumstance if I were to experience it, but that doesn't discount their reality. Who am I to know? Bonobos are, oh my God. Okay, we're starting on bonobos now. Bonobos. Bonobos are one of our closest relatives genetically, right? So they are as closely related to us as chimpanzees. One of the most fascinating things about bonobos is that while chimpanzees resolve their mm, what's the word I'm looking for? They resolve their internal turmoil or stresses. Chimpanzees resolve that through violence and aggression. Um, bonobos resolve it through sex. So if you have a pack of chimpanzees come upon a feeding ground, they will get into a massive fight. They will violently attack one another to guard the resources from the rest. When a pack of bonobos, or family, I don't know what they're called, a family of bonobos come up on the same type of feeding ground, they will have a massive orgy. And then afterwards, they'll all hang out and like eat together. They're a very interesting species. Um, my favorite culture. I would have to say that one of my absolute favorite cultures to study was the Tewa. I love the Tewa. Um, there is there are two versions. A trooper party. Okay. There are two versions of the history of the Tewa people. Um, depending on if you ask someone who is Tewa or someone who is Hopi. Okay. The the Hopi live in New Mexico on the Three Mesas. One of those mesas at our current point in time, I think it's the third mesa, but I don't quote me on that. I'm not 100%. I think the third mesa though is where they have the Tewa Hopi specifically. The Tewa people originate. They were originally located as nomadic people in the Chihuahuan desert. When the conquistadors were coming through, um, they fought with the conquistadors a great deal. If you ask the Hopi what happened, the Hopi will say that the Tewa people came to them for refuge from the conquistadors. If you ask the Tewa people, they say that the Hopi came to them and asked them to be warriors for their tribe. Because the Hopi are not warriors. They're a very, very peaceable people. Um, they they have very strict concepts of equality. Uh, no, no Hopi is the type to gloat or be proud of personal success. They don't want to be grand or great. That is not a value that they have. They want they want peaceable equality. So, there are no warriors. There were no police. That is, the positions of authority over others were not desirable positions. Um, the Tewa were very different. They were an aggressive culture. They were a fighting culture. When you see in say news or any sort of media the Hopi being represented, it is usually a Tewa Hopi, not just a Hopi that is doing it. So when they first came to where the Hopi were, the Three Mesas, the story was that they were treated very poorly by the other Hopi. There were stories about how they would tell them to hold their hands out and pour hot gruel into it. They had promised them land and women, but when they got there, what they gave them was the worst of their lands. Um, like down at the bottom of the mesa. They weren't even allowed up top with everybody else. So the Tewa became very angry about this. And they placed a curse on the Hopi people. The curse was that the Hopi would never be allowed to learn the language of the Hopi. The story was that the two tribes came together. They marked a line in the sand, and